Today I wanted to just take a look at this little magazine here. I guess it's considered a magazine. This is Reader's Digest, which I'm sure many of you have at least heard of before, if you don't read it. So, I've always heard of Reader's Digest all my life because this is a very, very old magazine. But I didn't start reading it until not very long ago, maybe just a couple of years ago. It's not something that sounded very interesting to me. Reader's Digest really doesn't sound interesting at all. But I had gotten this as like a bonus gift when I subscribed to another publication. So this came as a free subscription, and this is now my favorite little magazine to read. There's so many nice and interesting things in every single issue. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just picked this older volume. I just kind of get behind on reading them. I still have a whole bunch of them that I haven't read, just because I don't have very much time to read. But this is from December 2016 through January 2017. Each issue has a different feature. This one features real life miracles. So I'm just going to sort of go through and give a little bit of an idea of what is normally included in Reader's Digest and why I like it so much. And I think I'll just read one of the little stories. So in this issue, some of the things included are As the Good Book Says, which is surprising sayings from the Bible. Easy diet tweaks for the new year. Grow Your Soul, and that's a 1-minute lesson from Vonnegut. And then the feature story, Real Life Miracles, which is true stories of love, loss, and heartwarming reunion. And there's a little bit of humor. A 10-month-old's letter to Santa. A daughter's ultimate act of forgiveness. How to spot fake online reviews. 35 things the police want you to know. Heroes of Pearl Harbor. And My Mother Gives the Weirdest Gifts. And this one was nice here. Seeing the Lights. Forget white Christmases. I dream of tractors and more, all of them bright with bulbs. That was a nice little Christmas story. And these are all real stories. It's Not Quite a Wonderful Life. How to Get Through the Holidays If You've Got the Winter Blues. This one was about the gift of food. Vacation items you'll almost always regret packing. How to shamelessly regift this holiday season. 6 surprising times you are quoting the Bible. Here's letters on the last issue. Here's a story about the storybook barber. Let's see, it says, Courtney Holmes offers his young customers a little something extra with their trim. It's a story about how he reads books to them when they come in for a haircut. This one says, without hesitation, when a man falls onto the train tracks, 3 strangers jump down after him. And the way every story is told, it's just done in such a nice way that makes you feel really nice at the end of the story. This one was just cute. My mother gives the weirdest gifts. And this is How to Grow Your Soul. And this is a lesson by Vonnegut. I guess maybe I can read this one. It's kind of short. Your homework assignment from a famous novelist. Make art, then destroy it. In 2006, a New York City English teacher named Miss Lockwood asked her students to write to their favorite author and persuade him or her to visit the school. 5 of those pupils chose novelist Kurt Vonnegut. Though he never made the trip to Xavier High School, Vonnegut did respond to the students with the following letter. He was the only author to reply. Now this is in November 5th of 2006. Dear Xavier High School and Miss Lockwood and Messrs. Perrin, McFeely, Batten, Maurer, and Conquista. I thank you for your friendly letters. You sure know how to cheer up a really old geezer at age 84 in his sunset years. I don't make public appearances anymore because I now resemble nothing so much as an iguana. What I had to say to you, moreover, would not take long, to wit, practice any art, music, singing, dancing, acting, drawing, painting, sculpting, poetry, fiction, essays, reportage, no matter how well or badly, not to get money and fame, but to experience becoming, to find out what's inside you, to make your soul grow. I mean, starting right now, do art and do it for the rest of your lives. Draw a funny or nice picture of Miss Lockwood and give it to her. Dance home after school and sing in the shower, and on and on. Make a face in your mashed potatoes. Pretend you're Count Dracula. Here's an assignment for tonight, and I hope Miss Lockwood will flunk you if you don't do it. Write a 6-line poem about anything but rhymed. No fair tennis without a net. Make it as good as you possibly can, but don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't show it or recite it to anybody, not even your girlfriend or parents or whatever, or Miss Lockwood, okay? Tear it up into teeny-weeny pieces and discard them into widely separated trash receptacles. You will find that you have already been gloriously rewarded for your poem. You have experienced becoming, learned a lot more about what's inside you, and you have made your soul grow. And that's it. So I'm sure many of you have heard of Kurt Vonnegut before, but it tells you down here, Kurt Vonnegut is the author of 14 novels, including Slaughterhouse-Five, consistently rated one of the 100 best English language books of the 20th century. And they have these little sections. This is a section called You Be the Judge, and it tells you the case of something that went to court, and it sort of asks your opinion, whether you think, which side you think is right. This was about the case of the deadly avalanche. And it tells you the verdict. And then they just have these interesting little things here. This is points to ponder. This is from Carrie Mae Weems. She's a photographer. And she says, you have to make what you want to see in the world. That is basically your obligation if you're an artist. For that matter, even if you're a plumber. This is a really cool picture here. They'll just include some interesting pictures. This is a photo of lasting interest. And not sure how well you can see, these are crystals. Huge beams of crystals underground. And down here it says, Inside Earth. Since 2000, more than 600,000 years after some of these crystal beams formed, humans have been exploring the Cueva de los Cristales. Obviously not sure if I'm saying that right. An underground crystal incubator 1,000 feet below Mexico's Naiga Mountain. The protective suit to tells all about the risk. Temperatures here scorch up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, and humidity consistently hovers between 90 and 100%. A human without adequate gear, an ice-cold suit, and a cool air breathing system would succumb to the climate in minutes. It's amazing. And every issue includes a lot of things sent in by the readers. This is Your True Stories in 100 Words. See, so each little story is pretty short. Throughout the whole thing, so it's not like hard to read. This is someone wrote in about a Christmas gift to remember. That Christmas Eve, I tried to put on my best Whoville face for my 4 children. I had no presents for them, no tree, lights, or stockings. I smiled, but I couldn't quite pull it off. The kids had not complained at all. But by bedtime, I was overwhelmed with discouragement. Tears poured down my cheeks. Waking up Christmas morning, I saw taped to the wall a stocking, cut from a brown paper bag, stapled together. It had a candy cane and Mom drawn on it in red crayon. Isn't that nice? This is from a woman in Oklahoma. Now this one is called Lucky Dog. I saw him limping along, one rear leg dangling, useless, on my way home from work. He was a small, nearly hairless gray dog. I stopped and tossed him bits of bread to entice him closer. Leery, this broken creature let me put him in the car. My husband rebelled against $1,500 for surgery. Take him to the pound. I did, but when he wrapped his paws around my arm in terror, I decided to face my husband's wrath. Now, 6 years later, he loves that dog more than he loves me. That's from a woman in New Mexico. And the last little story here is called Forever Love. The dreaded phone call came. My 97-year-old mother was fading away. I rushed to her bedside, but Mama just lay there. I was heartbroken when she died 3 days later. We hadn't shared any meaningful last words. While gathering mementos from her home for her funeral, I snatched a bag promoting an upcoming movie. The release date was my mother's birthday. Reversing the bag, my vision blurred as I read the message. Love like that doesn't go away. It's here with us forever. Mama had indeed spoken. And that's from someone in Virginia. And so they ask you down below if you want to submit your own stories. You can go online and you actually get paid for it if they choose your story. And this part I always love too. This is a section called Finish the Sentence. And so they have people write in to finish the sentence. And this issue's sentence is, the one New Year's resolution I kept was, and then people write in from all over the country. Someone from New York he finished the sentence. The one New Year's resolution I kept was, always leaving room for improvement. That way I can have something to resolve next year. And this person said, to share my love of books and encourage reading by building a little free library. It's such a joy to see adults and children leave with books that they've chosen. And this is from someone in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And they finished the sentence, making my marriage work, and I have for 37 years. This is from someone in Savannah, Georgia. They said that the one resolution they kept was visiting another national park with my family. We went to 2. And this one is nice. This is from someone in Lexington, Kentucky. It says, to say something nice to someone, even if it's a stranger. I've made it a permanent resolution. This person from Iowa says, to improving my vocabulary. And this person in Oklahoma, spreading smiles every day, especially when I don't feel like smiling. And this person from Oregon says, to quit smoking. New Year's Eve will make it 20 years. I don't miss one thing about it. This person said, to stay fat. I'm very satisfied with the results. That person's from New Mexico. Someone from Arizona said, writing a thank you note to someone every day. And this one is from Salt Lake City, Utah. Being a kid again by playing with my children. I haven't read this story, but it sounds interesting. This is called Call Back Anytime. I'll just read the little beginning here. In February of 2005, Phil, I'm not going to say his last name, was teaching his 7th grade students how to write a parody of the Robert Frost poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. He liked the sample that he had written for them, so he recorded it on his home answering machine. And this is what it said. Whose phone this is, I think you know. I cannot answer it now, though, so state your name, be very clear. I'll call you back when I get home. And that act would lead to one of the most unusual friendships of his life. And it was from a man who called his phone accidentally by calling the wrong number. But he really enjoyed the message on his answering machine. And the rest of the story is about how they became friends. And reading it, it seems like they never even really met in person, but they called each other their best friends. And this section is called Life in these United States. Okay, this one says, a friend of mine had an aunt who was into health food way before anybody else in Mississippi. Even considered it. She would send away for special beans and powders and nuts, and sure enough, she kept trim and lively and never got sick. But her family did not approve. It wasn't how the Lord meant folks to eat. At a ripe old age, this aunt went into a coma. See, said her family, when her natural time came, her mind passed, but her body was too healthy to go. And let's see. A few months back, my wife showed a picture of herself at the age of 7 to our 3-year-old daughter. Do you know who this is? She asked. Our daughter gasped and said, That's me when I'm bigger. Kids are so cute. When parents say to kids, go to your room and think about what you've done, it's really good practice for what you'll do every night as an adult. And that's true for sure. And this is the article that was on the front. The Art of Living When It's Not Quite a Wonderful Life. Here's how to have an emotionally authentic holiday, even if you've got a touch of the winter blues. I'm not going to read that one right now. This was another one that was on the cover. Silent signs your body craves a diet tweak. So this is the health section. And this was another one on the cover, The Gift of Food. I don't think I read this one yet either, but I'm sure that's a nice story too. An eye-opening look at who's really going hungry in America. Vacation items you'll almost always regret packing. And the how to shamelessly regift this holiday season. A World of Medicine. This is news from the world of medicine. And it's all just little entries here. Hidden tooth infections may contribute to heart disease. Fruits and veggies boost happiness. It tells a little bit about each With more reps, lighter weights are as effective as heavy ones. And lots of other little tips there. And then here is the featured cover story. Miracles in Real Life. Like love, the word miracle gets overused. We trot it out to describe an amazing sports play or a particularly effective detergent, but a genuine miracle produces something precious and rare. It raises goosebumps, inspires awe, and most of all touches the heart. We think these 4 stories about families who discovered joy when they least expected it do that and more. And what better time to celebrate joy than during the holiday season? I'm not sure that I've read this part yet. And so I wasn't going to read this whole section here. This story here, this is a paramedic helped save the life of Michael Shannon, who's a doctor, before recognizing Shannon from his childhood. So I'm not sure what that story's all about, but it says, I don't know if he knows how lucky he was. I might read one of these, I'm not sure. And then it's got, so there's 4 longer stories, and then there's little shorter little things here. My miracle. Our daughter was $2,500 short for tuition her freshman year, and we had no more resources to pay for it. My husband said a prayer, played the lottery, and won exactly $2,500. And this one here, my miracle. I was walking to the gas station and heard crying behind a dumpster. I saw a young girl in labor and helped her deliver triplets. Let's see this one. My miracle. I landed an airplane with engine failure that had shaken all but one bolt out of its engine mount. Wow. And this is a story. It says, I knew she was out there. Looks like reunited on the job. This is 2 sisters, and I guess the story is how they found each other. Maybe they worked together. This one here says, I walked into the room and my mother, who had dementia, raised her arm, waved, and said, Hi, Karen, with her eyes shining bright. Her miracle. And this little one here. We were so poor we had not planned to have Christmas that year. Then a stranger dropped off the makings for Christmas dinner. I still don't know who did it. Isn't that nice? And this last one, Mr. Fancy, home at last. This one is called This Cat is Meant to Be Here. Okay, let's read this. I want to hear about Mr. Fancy the cat. On a chilly March evening in 2014 in Lucedale, Mississippi, Anne Bosch, then 53, stood on her front steps while her mini dachshund, Gracie, took a bathroom break. Gracie sniffed an unwelcome visitor under the camellia bush and barked. Anne bent and saw a pair of green eyes. "Hello there," Anne said, and heard a meow in reply. Anne, who had 2 resident cats, Bosco and Junior, went inside. She returned with a bowl of cat food and slid it beneath the bush. The next night the cat returned. Anne fed him again, moving the bowl closer to the house. After a week, the mystery cat showed himself. He was long-haired, with a plume of tail punctuated by a white tip. Anne called him Mr. Fancy, or Fancy for short. Soon Mr. Fancy was strutting in and out of the cat door. However, Anne's husband Jean argued that Fancy should find a new home. "We don't need another mouth to feed, and vet bills are expensive," he said. Reluctantly, Anne agreed. The drive to the shelter was heartbreaking. Anne cried. Fancy cried. She consoled herself by thinking, "He's so beautiful and lovable, somebody will want him." A month later, Anne woke to the sound of Jean's voice. She went to see which animal he was talking to, and saw a white-tipped tail. A thinner Fancy ran across the room to her. When she asked the shelter what had happened, she learned that Fancy had escaped 20 minutes after she had left, when a worker opened the cage to feed him. Somehow, over the next month, he navigated the 3 miles, traversing railroad tracks, busy streets, and sketchy neighborhoods, back to the Bosches. "This cat is meant to be here," Anne says. Even Jean agrees. "Whatever time I have with Fancy," Anne says, "they're going to be the best years of his life." And then this is a section called Laughter, the Best Medicine. And this one says, "I got on board with the Lord of the Rings once I learned it's an epic 3-book saga about destroying a hideous piece of jewelry once and for all." Comedian Mitch Hedberg was eager to hang a map of the world in his house. "I'm gonna put pins into all the locations I've traveled to," he said. "But first, I'm gonna have to travel to the top 2 corners of the map so it won't fall down." This one's funny. "For the longest time, I thought my mother, father, and cat all had the same handwriting. Then I found out Mom was just signing cards for all of them." 10-month-old's letter to Santa. This is cute. It's kind of talking about how all babies really want to play with are all these little household items that they're not supposed to play with. One thing the baby wants are everybody's eyeglasses. I pull these off the face of every person I meet, only to have them pried from my fingers and reclaimed by their original owner. I would love to have a pair of my own. Again, these are going to be for eating. The contents of this thing. I would love for the contents of this thing to be emptied out onto the floor, particularly things like used wet cotton balls and discarded pieces of floss. If you would like to just take the contents of this bin and transfer them directly into my stocking, that would also be fine. The dog's food. Every time I get close to this, someone pulls me away from it. If they don't want me to eat it, why is it on the floor? And this is the story about the wolves of Yellowstone. And then they just have these little interesting facts here and there. This is a notable New Year's. On December 31st, 1899, the SS Waremu crossed the exact spot where the equator meets the international date line. Straddling the line at the stroke of midnight, the forward half of the ship entered January 1st, 1900, while the aft remained in December 31st, 1899, simultaneously inhabiting 2 hemispheres on 2 days in 2 centuries. Here's the article about 35 things police officers want to tell you. Seeing the lights. And this was the little story called Seeing the Lights. Like half the country, I don't dream about white Christmases. I dream of tractors and more, all of them bright with bulbs. Some things we cannot duplicate where I live. We will never celebrate Christmas inside a picture postcard. We have no winter wonderland, though once, inspired by a snowfall seen on the black and white television, I did scrape a handful of ice from the inside of the freezer to throw at my brother. By the time I got to him, all I had to fling was a handful of rain. What we do have is electricity. As long as the Tennessee Valley Authority can light up the southern night with strands of color, shining from every mansion and mobile home, twinkling round the baby Jesus, they can have their white Christmas. I have seen lights encircling hay bales, hung on rusty tractors, and wrapped around mailbox posts. In the country, you need a lot of extension cord to electrify a mailbox. I've seen them strung across the grills of Peterbilt trucks. My mother never takes down her lights, strung on a cedar beam in the living room, though she does unplug them eventually. The rich folks have switched. The rich folks have switched to white lights, a lot of them, to be elegant, but it will always be lights of color shining through a night that smells of cut pine and wood smoke that mean Christmas to me. I find it especially hard not to live in the past at this time of year, when I would do anything to see the world like a child again. It is why I fill the refrigerator every December with chocolate-covered cherries and watch for the 100th time those oddly animated 50-year-old Christmas specials about Kris Kringle and the evil Burgermeister and the elf who wanted to be a dentist. It is important that some things stay the same, that at some point this season someone will say, "We're going to look at Christmas lights. Wanna come?" I go sometimes, and sometimes just say no. It is enough to know someone is going. I have a fine memory stashed away of the lights. I do not want it to grow less than it was by heaping a Walmart's worth of new lights on it. I remember it was first grade, and the big ramshackle house we lived in just for that winter was haunted. I was afraid of the house that night. I was afraid of that house at night. It creaked and the wind hissed around the eaves. One cold evening, my aunts came by to take us for a ride in an old Chevrolet, rescuing us. As we drove through the foothills, my face pressed against the window, I saw that the very dark had been conquered, chased away by miles of light, tracing the outlines of ragged trailers and leaning frame houses. Now and then one of my aunts would mutter, "Their light bill's gonna be high," over the Christmas songs on the radio, and I went to sleep that way. Later, someone carried me inside. I remember I was embarrassed by that. I was a big boy, but the women in my family are strong. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a very hefty light bill. That was nice. And then this says the other one, 13 things savvy shoppers look for in online reviews. Body Gunk Explained. Surprising times you are quoting the Bible. And it's just giving different like phrases or cliches or things that people say that are have originated from stories in the Bible. Then it says, "Look twice. What do you see? Is that popcorn kernels? A marshmallow caramel sundae? Or is it mold in a week-old pumpkin?" section here. It pays to increase your word power. It says humor in uniform. And the last page here is Quotable Quotes. And this is Julie Andrews. She says, success is terrifying. Like happiness, it is often appreciated in retrospect. And this is from Abigail Adams, the second First Lady. To be good and to do good is the whole duty of man, comprised in a few words. This is from Seth Godin, who is an entrepreneur, blogger, and marketer. The lessons we remember are the lessons we learn the hard way. This is from George W. Bush. Too often we judge other groups by their worst examples while judging ourselves by our best intentions. And I love that. That I always kind of think to myself how we always, give ourselves, make a lot of excuses for ourselves and allow ourselves to do things that we judge so harshly in other people. So I really like that on there. So that's it for this issue of Reader's Digest. I really do like these little magazines. This one was more about Christmas themed things just because of the time of this one, but sometimes this wasn't exactly my favorite one, but maybe sometime I'll read another one